kind of jump on, I want to introduce our lovely production assistant, Miss Kimberly Johnson. Come on, Kimberly.
Hi, Kimberly.
Come say hey. Say what? Hi to the people.
Welcome, Kingdom Women.
And welcome. Kimberly is an awesome, awesome friend and sister in Christ as well. So we're excited to get everything going. So we're not going to belabor the moment. I'm going to give a few announcements. So, of course, if you've been following our page, we have a very important event coming up June 22nd. It's called Healing Moments Intensive. Our fearless leader, Tyra Eklund, is going to be a speaker. Prophetess Autumn Murner, First Lady Autumn Murner, sorry. Dr. Shirley Trimble Allen is going to be speaking as well. It's going to be in Northwest Arkansas, beautiful Northwest Arkansas. I'm a native Arkansan, so I can say that Northwest Arkansas is one of the most beautiful parts of our state. So please, please, please check our posts, look at our page. If you're interested in getting more information, reach out to us. We would love to see you there. It's going to be in Springdale, Arkansas. So now that I have gone through the major announcement, I want to introduce Miss Samantha Morgan. So I'll give you an introduction. I met Samantha at our local church here in Dallas, Once Community Church in Plano. How many years ago? Like three?
About 3 years.
Yeah. 3 years ago. So I was a life group leader, and Samantha was my life group coach, and we developed a relationship from there. And Samantha is amazing. I mean, she's a great coach. She's a great co-laborer in the kingdom. She's very transparent with her testimony, and she's just really always there. Whenever, I can text Samantha at work and say I need to talk, and she'll drop what she's doing and say, yeah, let's talk. So I'm very thankful for her. One of the things that really struck me with Samantha was her transparency and her honesty with her battle and overcoming mental illness. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to feature her as on a table talk, and I'm going to let her take it from here. So
Thank you.
Here you go.
Thank you, Davina.
No problem.
This is kind of new for me to go out on a live feed with friends and family, particularly those back in Michigan. About 10 years, I kind of disappeared and came down to Dallas to rebuild my life and start my life over. Some of you that are still living life with me know exactly what's going on and where I've been. But I just wanted to share with everybody today how mental illness has impacted my family, myself in general as well, and the way that God's worked and made a way for that to be different for me. I tend to gravitate towards people that have struggles and that are in some way suffering. That is just because God has glorified me. That's just really, it's all to God's glory. So He did not put me through the struggles or the things that I've gone through in order to keep it to myself.
That's
so
right.
I just wanted to share here with everybody publicly.
Awesome, awesome. That's right. Our testimony. We overcome by our
Yes.
testimony and the blood of the Lamb. So
Amen.
thank you.
Amen.
So tell us a little bit about your childhood, where you're originally from.
Yeah.
You said you disappeared
I did.
from your family 10 years ago. So
Going
tell us,
like some security program. But no, I'm from Kingsley, Michigan. It's a small town just outside of Traverse City, Michigan. Everybody that says anything about Michigan, they're like, where's that in comparison to Detroit?
Yeah.
So it's about four and a half hours or so north of Detroit.
Oh, wow.
We're in the Northwest Lower Peninsula. So when
Okay.
I always pull out my map and say, we live right here.
Okay.
So that's where I'm from originally. Whenever my feet have hit Texas soil, I have always been at peace, and that's been that way since probably my late teens and early 20s. Whenever my feet hit Texas soil, I was just like peaceful, like something I couldn't have any other place in the world. So it's all starting to unfold and make sense now.
Yeah.
But at the time, I had no idea why that sense of peace existed within me. So as a child, my dad was always self-employed. My mom worked hard alongside him. And it was trying. I didn't realize really until probably about 2012, 2013 that my dad's issues that he was suffering with were the same as what I now have suffered with. So I didn't have an idea. I just knew that most of the time it felt like hell. It really felt like hell. So when you've walked through and you realize what that came from, God has evolved me to be able to have empathy for that situation, which has granted me so much forgiveness and understanding for what my dad was dealing with. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that until several years after he passed. He passed in 2008. But the last couple years of his life, we managed our relationship quite well. And, you know, I am able to see the way that my dad has touched so many lives, so many lives. It's just that those closest to you, sometimes when you're dealing with some mental health issues, those closest to you are the ones that you take that out on.
Yeah.
And that was my case. That was my case as well.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So a lot of healing has come to the, you know, discovering what was going on answered so many questions for me.
So in your family, was mental health or mental illness talked about?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, we just like our beer. So we just like our beer. And so we don't talk about, and still it's an uncomfortable topic, I feel, in my family. I think that my mom and my stepdad, who I refer to as dad, but my stepdad and my mother are starting to really come around to understand. My brother's family as well is starting to really understand. And you know, some of the extended family, they're coming around. They're starting to understand. But no, it's not talked about. It's really not. Coping skills, as I call them now, you're seeing those used, but you sometimes wonder, you know, and I'm not saying that mental health runs rampant through my family by any stretch, but I'm saying that we all have a way to handle stress, and it's called coping skills. And coping skills for a lot of people is beer, drugs, alcohol, whatever it looks like. It all has a different face. So I think that some social norms are in there a little bit. So no, mental health was never ever talked about, and it hasn't been talked about in my family really until I had my diagnosis.
So great. That's a great segue. So
there you go.
When exactly were you diagnosed, and what events transpired for you to come to that diagnosis?
Well, as a child, I'm remembering some things, but my mom has shared some things with me too. As a child, I always had really heightened emotions, really high, intense emotions. Things hurt real bad. When they hurt real bad. You know, if a boyfriend broke up with me, it stung badly. And it was, things pained me to a level that really wasn't normal. I had some childhood trauma other than just difficulties with my dad. I had a guy that worked for my father was actually died in a motorcycle accident in the woods behind our house, and I discovered his body when I was very young. I was probably, I think I was 12, 11 or 12. I think it was 12. So what that did is it created more trauma, another layer of trauma to, and I buried that. I became really good as a kid, like really burying it. And some of those close to me didn't really know the depth of the pain that I had. But through that process, I did some counseling with the Child Guidance Center in Traverse City. So my counseling started, you know, like 5th grade, I think it was when I started. But heightened emotions, like, you know, I think we've all had our parent, maybe we haven't, maybe that's not normal, but had a parent raise their voice to us in a car or someone else, you know. My mom described a time where, you know, I tried to open up the door going down the highway, which is like a 55-mile-an-hour M37 heading into Traverse City, and she was mad at me about something and raised her voice, and I just wanted the pain level was I wanted everything but being in that car, and I tried to open up the door. And so always those heightened emotions. So I was a fool to believe that a piece of me always thought everybody else was abnormal with their emotions and mine were normal. So I really truly believe that. So what that led to is through my teenage years, I had this lack of self-esteem, like no self-esteem at all. But knowing me, you'd never know that because I buried it. So I was an overachiever, doing and doing and doing, sold the most Girl Scout cookies, sold the most boxes of oranges, vice president of the class, you know, a captain of the basketball team, track team, whatever. You know what I mean? Those were the things that I was striving for approval. So teenage years were pretty up and down. You know, I never had an issue with authority or a school. My behaviors at school, I was an exceptional student and graduated at the top of my class, and I really did not have any work-related issues, relationship issues there. It was always the people closest to me, which is exactly the pattern of behavior that my dad had. Yeah. Wow. So I will fast forward real fast and get to the diagnosis.
You're fine.
So the diagnosis came when I was getting ready to enter my third marriage. And yes, I say third marriage. Not really proud of that, but also not carrying shame for that anymore. So all those things and all those steps were necessary to get me where God needed me to be. However, I had behaviors outside of my marriages that were inappropriate. So I had two situations, entirely what I will say my fault. You know, I fractured both of those marriages with my behaviors, and was trying to lead the single life and trying to step out of those behaviors as much as I could. Then I met a man from Dallas, and he came into my life, and I was trying to end a 9-year relationship that I had been having through my second marriage and on through my singleness back and forth. It was just a disaster. But I was trying to end that relationship, and I was trying to move on to something different. But and I was on a path. However, I made an attempt to get rid of that relationship, not by my own means, but entrusting my fiance to take care of it for me and to be the knight in shining armor and the man that I needed to come in and rescue me from the situation. So I made the mistake one evening of I was being contacted and handed my phone to my fiance and said, I want this to end, would you please take care of it? What he didn't know is it was going to lead into a conversation about the last 9 years. And so I hadn't shared that openly because of my shame associated with my behaviors. So we went to see my therapist because I was having a hard time walking
Your
through.
therapist here?
No, my therapist in Michigan.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I was still in Michigan at the time. And he was here, I was still in Michigan. So I went to see my therapist back there. I had been seeing on and off for about a 7 or 8 year period. And he found it very concerning that I could not tell the truth, even in the context of his office and what all would believe is a safe environment. But I just saw my life flashing before my eyes. I saw, vice president of operations at an oil and gas company, and I saw a home, and I saw a life and a move to Dallas, and how I wanted this all to change. And I couldn't see any of that possible if the truth came out. I just couldn't see it.
So
I could not see it.
To make it plainly, you had everything together on the outside.
On the outside.
You were an executive in your company.
Yes, I had a dirty little secret over here. And I just could not, I was not in a place in my life where I could trust God to just work all that out. So I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So my therapist suggested that I have a psychological evaluation.